Yo, 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 what's happening? It's your boy Marlon, Big Fave Favorite. Hello, somebody, and you're on Nolazine TV. Watch out there now.
Okay, so tell everybody where you from.
From the West Bank of New Orleans, was born and raised in the Harvey Marrero area. Coming up off of Ames and then Woodmere is basically, the fabric of my upbringing.
Gotcha. So playing sports in tying music and for your whole career, most people know you if you've been a music artist, just as long as you was playing sports.
That's correct.
So I'm here to ask you first, which one, what's your first love? If football or music?
Football was actually my first love. I started playing football right at about the second grade. So, Pee Wee ball at King Grant. And when I made 8, I couldn't make the weight limit for none of the age groups. So back then in the park, they didn't play the weight game. So in that time frame, I started singing in a choir probably about maybe 10 years old, 9, 10 years old. Because I wasn't able to play football again until I was 11 when I went to Ellender. That's when I was able to actually play again. And I went to, started singing in the choir. Shouts out to Clark Knighton, Henry Washington, Anthony Knighton, just that whole crew that really helped tone who I am now in terms of music, right? So just singing in the choir, you have your tenor, your bass, you have your alto, you have your soprano, and just being able to do that and having that a part of my life, they always was married. So it was like a 2-3 year difference, really, growing up music and football.
Gotcha. So, leaving from Ellender, going to John Eric, leading up to there, did you fully focus on football? I'm about to go all in with it?
Yeah, when I first fell in love with ball, I was in. I was locked in. It broke my heart when I couldn't play anymore. So from that time frame, I guess between Ellender and I would say I went to 2 high schools. I went to Shaw and I went to West Jeff. Well, Jeff junior, senior year, but all my people went to Eric.
I thought you went to Eric.
Everybody did. Everybody thought I went to Eric because that's where I grew up at, and everybody around.
It was always around that area.
Yeah, all my best friends, cousins, relatives, for the most part, went to John Eric. My mother taught at John Eric. My siblings went there, my older siblings, so it was like, oh yeah, he went to Eric, but my path was slightly different.
So Shaw and West Jeff, Shaw, a lot of people don't speak on Shaw. A lot of people went to Shaw, athletes.
Yeah, a lot of people. The Joseph family. You look at Vance Joseph coaching in the NFL, Mickey Joseph, national championship coach at LSU, Terry Joseph, who's out in Notre Dame. You have Sammy Joseph. Sammy bounced around, coached at Nicholls State, Memphis. It's a long list of Josephs. Right. That family, Clark.
The Josephs.
Repping Marrero too, right?
Ryan Clark.
Ryan Clark's from Marrero. You had Greg Brooks. His son plays at LSU right now. Greg Brooks Jr. He went to West Jeff, but his dad graduated from Shaw. Yeah, Coach Hank Tierney. He had his list of players in the NFL, and I can remember even being at Shaw, and they all come back. We all go back too, right? So I can remember Ryan Clark always coming back because his brother Chaz went to school with me. So I saw Ryan every year I was at Shaw, and even coming to West Jeff. And he's someone that, now you talk about Ryan, he's someone who had influence on my entire career since then. So since a freshman at Shaw all the way to today, even as a career broadcaster, he's always showed what I like to call West Bank love. So shouts out to RC. Handling his business too. He's doing exceptionally well out there. Right. Big time.
Shout out to him. Also, I want to give you, your flowers. Before we go all the way into being Super Bowl champ. It was twice, right?
Or national champ with LSU, Super Bowl champ.
Okay.
With the Saints. Well, yeah, it was a blessing, man. Timing, all the timing. God, prayer, and timing. Yeah.
So, I want you to break it down for somebody in high school right now, prospect. But how did you go about choosing, if I'm going to LSU?
Well, that's a good question. And back then, recruiting was so different, too. It was a different process. So for me, LSU was one of the first teams to offer me. I remember Coach Pete Jenkins. They were recruiting Henry Johnson at the time. Hollywood Johnson played at Shaw with me. And Pete Jenkins was like, hey, who is this big mofo on the film right here? Oh, he a freshman, coach. He ain't no junior or senior. And that year, I want to say that year, my next year, I got offers from LSU and Florida. So it was different than letters and letter offers and wanting you to invite you to the camp. It was so different then. So going into, my freshman year, second string defensive lineman. Sophomore year, same deal. Played behind guys like Marlon Winchester, Leo DeSalle, guys who played in front of me at Shaw. And I appreciate those years too because, I was bigger than all of those guys, but you're 14, 15 years old, you have a lot to learn. And those guys taught me the proper technique along with Coach Hank's coaching staff. So all together, I'm super appreciative of that time frame. So my junior year, when I got to West Jeff, and I tell kids this all the time, you got to ball hard in your junior year because that's the year that really solidifies you as a player, So my junior year was where all the preseason All-American accolades came from, All-State, going into that year. So I was the number one defensive tackle in the country going into our senior year. So from there was a whole bunch of schools. And then once the season started, you start narrowing it down. We used to call it the top 5 back then. I mean, these kids have 15 different schools they be having to go through now, and so much is so different. But what we used to do back then was you pick the 5 schools, and that's where you visit. So I took my visit to Colorado. At the time, Vance Joseph was there. I had Thaddeus Washington, John Eric Great, and Sammy Joseph as my host there. Me and Sammy ended up at LSU together, crazy. But took my visit there. I canceled my visit to USC and to Miami after, Coach Saban came down. I was like, what's up? We got some other D tackles we're looking at too. Like, it was that type of deal back then. Took my visit and I committed 2 weeks before signing day. So I wanted to go to LSU, but
you wanted to be close to home too?
Yeah, I did. Honestly, and it was more to than close to home. The familiarity matters, right? To be homegrown, but at the same time, I felt that if I would have took that visit to USC, especially because Ed Ogeron was there too. He was recruiting this area and he was the D-line coach then. If I would have took that visit, I think it would have been a different, might have been a different outcome. But I'm excited about. Well, I was ecstatic at the time about the decision I made, and go Tigers, forever LSU.
Okay, so leaving from LSU, going to the NFL, I don't think people realize it's really one difficult journey if you ain't the top of the, if you ain't the best of the best. Everyone has the NFL dream, but you went to the NFL. So who drafted you?
So I was undrafted to the Carolina Panthers.
Okay.
So the way that works for your viewers. When you're undrafted, the draft's over, Mr. Irrelevant is picked up. Once Mr. Irrelevant is drafted, they go to different teams, go to the different guys that they had their eyes on, will hope would fall into free agency, even the rookie free agents. And I remember being a bit disgruntled and brokenhearted after the draft, but right after it was chaotic. I mean, teams were calling my agent, they were calling my cell. It was like back-to-back calls, and me and my agent, we're outside. Shouts out to Shay. Me and Shay, we're outside and we're on the phone. He's on the phone with Oakland. I'm talking to Seattle. He's on the phone with Carolina. I'm on the phone with Indy. Atlanta calls. Seattle calls. We're getting so many different calls from the different teams. And at the time, I'm like, I don't know where to go. For real. Because when you're undrafted free agent, it's a decision that's made right there. It's like the money's on the table there. So if I remember correct, Oakland offered like $7,000, Atlanta offered like $5,000, Seattle offered $12,000, and then the numbers started to jump a bit. And back then, that was a decent amount of money. I mean, this was right before the market crash. This was 2009. So I remember it was basically a bidding war between the Indianapolis Colts and Carolina Panthers. It was a bidding war, and what I noticed was Indy didn't look as attractive as Carolina at that time. Carolina was closer to home. I'd never been to North Carolina at the time, but I always wanted to visit. And it still had that not down south but down south feeling to it. And then Indy, I'm thinking it's cold. You'd be way up north. So both teams, basically the big one went up to about $25,000. And I went in the room by myself. Tanisha's my wife now, was my girlfriend at the time, and my mother. They were like the two right outside the room. I was by myself. It was just me and God. And I was like, Lord, what I'm headed. And then it's going to sound weird. Then I started to hear Carolina Blue Kicks, Carolina. I started to hear the Wayne verse go up, and I'm like, that must be it. Eureka. I said, Carolina it is. And from there, I started the NFL journey. That was the first of 10 NFL teams over the next 4 years.
Yep. Oh, man, that's dope. So after them 4 years, did you wait? And so when did you go on back to the Saints?
So I was in the Saints. That was my rookie year.
Okay.
So New Orleans Saints was actually the 5th team that picked me up. So I went. So here's the teams. I went Carolina, St. Louis, Kansas City, Seattle. The season is over. New Orleans picks me up in the playoffs, releases me 2 weeks after the playoffs. Then I get shipped to Buffalo. So I'm out in Buffalo. So while we're here celebrating the win of the Super Bowl and that whole aftermath, I'm in 3-degree weather out in Buffalo. That experience was humbling. Not that already the first 5 teams being released was humbling, but Buffalo was a chance for me to really see what the league is about. And it's boring out in Buffalo. I ain't gonna lie to you. It's not a lot going on in Buffalo. I mean, the best thing about Buffalo, you're an hour from Toronto.
And so they traded you during the playoffs?
No, the season was over. We won the Super Bowl. Confetti all fell. And
have you got your ring?
Yeah, I got the ring 3 years later. Yeah. I actually got my Super Bowl ring 3 years later.
And so how did that process go?
It was weird. It's a long process. So basically, at the time I was going through a grievance with the New Orleans Saints. It wasn't anything bad. It was just, this happens all the time in the NFL. Like, teams have disagreements with players, and then NFLPA gets involved in the NFL. So our relationship is much better now. Of course, being in media and doing countless numbers of not only coverage for the Saints, for the NFL Network, but locally here with Great Day and all of it, etc. But back then, I wanted my ring, and it was some things I didn't get in the grievance, but at the end of the day, that ring was never about me. It was about the community of New Orleans, my hometown, and the faces we saw. Like, when you're doing the job, you're not thinking about none of that. All you know is you got your eye on the prize. You're trying to win this championship, So for me, in that moment, at that time, it was weird. I got, I don't know which team, but somebody tried to blackball me. It's just it's one of those leagues when you're vocal, right? And when you have a voice and you want to state an opinion, some people don't like that. Some owners want you to just shut your mouth and go back to the plantation and work. But, I'm glad today's players, they're starting to wake up, starting to have a voice. In the NFL, too, I will say this. Working very close with the NFL in 2019 and parts of 2020 before the pandemic, I started to see the change up. Working with the NFL Bridge of Success, I started to see more diversity in regards to internships. I started to see more diversity in regards to getting the HBCUs involved and having their own combine and stuff. Like, that's the stuff I was excited about, more than anything else. Like, that piece of seeing that side of the NFL. And this was before the pandemic. This was right in 2019. They hired all minority, African American broadcasters, former players and current players, and myself. It was 4 of us that ended up going to the Super Bowl that year. And they hired or brought on 4 interns from HBCUs across the country. And I'm like, look at the NFL. This is a positive step. So, like I said, it was just so different back then. It was still, you still had a lot of, how can I say this, members that had that old school mentality, like, get in the yard, boy, say what I want you to do and get to work. And, I'm glad we're waking up to that.
Okay, so broadcasting now, just a few weeks ago, as being in media myself, like, I'm like sketchy about posting, and what happened to like DeMar, so like, how do you feel about like just certain like and when people speak about I don't like the dangers of being in the NFL and being a football player, because like most people feel like, well, you signed up for this, like it's one like barbaric sport. So like, how do you feel about it?
Well, I do understand the folks that say that you signed up for this, but you have to go to the root of. And for a guy like me, I've been playing ball since I was a kid. And since a kid, I had a goal to go to the NFL. Like, that's going to be my job. So to get there and at a very early, I mean, when you're 20, 21, 22 years old, you're not walking around the locker room like the guys that's 35, 36, telling you to take care of your body. So you go into it with a mindset of knowing, hey, this is an at-risk business. You may get some bumps and bruises. Now, contractually, things were different then than they are now with the new CBA. It's much more in terms of rules and how the protocols go, but it's still a physical sport. So, to answer your question, it was a bit ignorance at first, because this is what we've been doing. No one ever said, hey, no one promoted, you can actually have a career-ending injury out here. You can hit yourself wrong and basically fall out. So, in that regard, as a player, there is some ignorance, but you got to listen to your body, I guess. That's if your body's telling you, man, hang up the cleats, you have to hang it up. So, it's just, and on a broadcasting end of that, you have to, mentoring matters. Shout out to Amber Theo Harris, James Brown. I mentioned Ryan Clark, Marcus Spears, Booger McFarland. Like, these guys were very instrumental in helping me to know the language, especially my time at the broadcast boot camp. Like, so that's how you kind of can pick what to talk about or how to speak on it.
Just me being on like the outside looking in, I would only want to actually hear from a person who was actually on the field.
Yeah.
Like for the people who never really played the sport or made it to that, acting to the NFL, I just can't respect their full opinions being on the outside looking in. But as media, you gotta watch what you see.
You do, especially and look, no disrespect to the journalists out there that hadn't played the sport but went to school, shout out my school, went to the LSU School of Communications, excelled, got straight A's, and you're one hell of a journalist. But experience does way more. That's where you see guys like Shannon Sharp on TV and players like.
And he's very passionate when he talks to you. Like, man, you don't know.
You don't know,
yeah.
and you have to. I had an issue with a coach in the NFL like that. He didn't play. He did not play professional ball. He didn't play the game. His family, his roots are in it. So I had a problem with how he voiced his opinion, and a lot of players did, from the length of what the practices used to be and all of that. So, yeah, if you didn't play the game, I love player coaches, bro, because they understand.
Right. And something like the only thing I kind of like always disagree with NFL, and I disagree when people try to actually, compare the positions. Mm-hmm. Like how, Shannon was fussing with Skip, like, Tom Brady the GOAT, you can't do what he do, but Shannon, he can't do what I do, and it's true. So it's like, how do you, determine who's the best player in the NFL when everybody is the best at what they do?
Well, it's the little things, in my opinion, because when you get to the NFL, to get to that level, first and foremost, it's 2,200 people, period. That's it. That's all it is in the NFL. That's including the guys on the practice squad. So you're a part of a very small elite. I think it's 0.00237, some crazy fraction of a number of the percentage of players that's actually in the league. So right. Everybody's here elite. Everybody got some type of niche about them, whether they're super big and fast at the same time, or they may be little bitty like Kyler Murray, but they can move around in the pocket and they can still throw the ball. So everybody's elite. What separates the really good ones from the okay ones is the guys that work harder, the work ethic of the guys. What I mean by that is film study, ODing on film study, like really knowing your opponent, everybody, what to expect. Breaking down different formations, different coverage. Like, some people don't know, if an offense comes out and, let's say, in 21 formation, a lot of folks don't know what that means. Well, you have running back first, you have tight end second. So they're coming out with 2 running backs and a tight end. So being able to recognize that, okay, now that they came out in 21, what are the top plays they run out of 21? So now you got to break down all those plays. But they're not just coming out in 21, they're coming out in 12 personnel. So then you got to break that down. Oh, snap, then they coming out in 11 personnel. 1 running back, what plays they're running out? And that's the Drew Breeses of the game. That's the Tom Brady's of the game. You know, you start looking at guys like Randall Cunningham, going back in the day. Michael Vick, you know, the way he approached the game and his maturity. That was my teammate with the Eagles. Just one of the leaders in the locker room. You know, just those things.
Hey, but this is my last, like, theory about football before we jump into the full music thing. Like, people always, when you speak on the best player, people often go for the quarterback. So I remember this one Super Bowl when Von Miller won a Super Bowl damn near by himself.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, how can you say Tom Brady the better if, like, just say if he didn't, like, say if Tom Brady won Super Bowl didn't perform well and the defensive player really did his thing to win the game, like,
right.
Why he can't be the best player in the league?
Well, it's a offensive driven league, right. And a quarterback is the leader and the face of the franchise. So who's the quarterback? So in that case, yes, Von Miller, that was the MVP of that game right there. And that was a coasting year too.
Well, I can speak on last year. Aaron Donald.
Yes, he was. He single-handedly. But this year, who's the guy? Nick Bosa. You know, so it's like it's always like, look, my neck of the woods, D-line, baby. Yeah. Hello, somebody. Like, that's typically where, you know, to me, and this is no offense to the other positions out there, mad respect for the tight end position, linebackers, field side, corner, all y'all the best, right? I love all y'all. But inside the trenches is where the game is won and lost, and particularly the guys on the defensive side of the ball because of the way that they can affect the game.
And guess what? I'm glad you speak on the defense side. Like right now, the whole Cincinnati Bengals are mad at their brother, the defensive player, for actually with the last minute decision of actually touching Patrick Mahomes.
But look at this. Saw that small decision? And it wasn't a bad penalty. I mean, Patrick sold it a bit too. He touched him when it was out of bounds and he sold it. You cannot touch him out of bounds. That little mistake, that separates him. That's the difference between him and a Von Miller. Right. And that's how, because both of the guys, if you're a starter in the NFL, you're a part of the small percentage of elite athletes in the world, period. Right. And that goes across the board with most of the sports.
Gotcha. So tell the world, how did you come up with your rap name?
Big Fade.
Well, it's kind of simple, but yeah.
Yeah, Big Fade, well, it's simple, but in the same token, it could be complex. So my last name is Favorite, which outside of Louisiana is like favorite, right? So your favorite person. When I got to Shaw, that's when my name went from being Marlon to Big Fade. Like everybody like, what's up, Fade? Man, look at Big Fade. Before you know it, I went to West Jeff. Big Fade. I came to LSU, Big Fade. Like, your boy Big Fade, like everybody, everywhere has always been my name. So I never put the E on the end. It's just Big Fade.
But like, speaking of your favorite, like I remember I had this teacher in second grade at Lincoln Elementary. Her name was Miss Favorite,
Uh-huh.
And I was like, I didn't think that was her real name.
Yep.
I thought she was playing.
Yeah. Oh, you must be talking about Karen. Karen Favorite.
I don't know her first name. I had to call her Miss Favorite.
That's right.
Second grade.
That's us. That's actually our real name, and I thank God for the favor because that's the beautiful part. Like a name is something that's given to you, right? So when I received my last name and realized the significance of it, it makes me match my personality. Like be the favorite person of the day type deal. But you know, shouts out to all the favorites across the world.
So like being in the music industry. Matter of fact, the entertainment industry, the media, all that. Like being a media mogul, being an ex-athlete, music artist. Tell us what do you enjoy most about it, and tell us what you actually dislike about it.
2 things: the preparation and the performance. That's my favorite of it all. The broadcasting, with the music, with the arrangements, even being SAG, being Screen Actors Guild. Principling and when the game stands tall and all. The preparation going into it. So going to the studio, I love it, man. Every time I got studio booked, it's one of my favorite moments because I can then get in my zone. And the performing in, right? You put in all this work during the practice week in football just to play in the game. and to perform at your best. And it just so happened when the time you had the best practice, that's when you had a even better game. And I look at the same thing with performing. Like I look forward to the shows that's coming up through the festival season. You know, that's every weekend in New Orleans. And just being able to, the way I'm involved too, is how I've always been involved. I've always wanted to make music to make people happy. Even my first recording album was created anew, produced and arranged by Clark Knighton. We dropped that at St. Joseph Worker. Me and Deli did this beat, was on that song. I wrote the song. We did like 4 bars apiece, and it was a gospel song. I don't know about you, my brother, but I come to praise the Lord. And like we were all on it. And from there, I fell in love with the recording process. I'm like, this is excellent. Now, the difference back then, music and ball wasn't really accepted in the form that it is now. So I did get some criticism from my peers when I was recording artists, and I did get some.
I think it was hating because this boy like Shaq was making music, acting, and doing it all.
Yeah, but you know what? to them, Shaq was established, and he could say whether they didn't like it or not. And even with Shaq, like Shaq went multi-platinum. You know,
you always speak on that, like but y'all never speak on me going platinum.
Because it's just this. I think it's you might have a point. It might be a little jealousy and hate, like, man, why I can't do all of that.
Right.
So it kind of looks like, man, you're all over the place. No, I'm just in my lane. That's all.
And they're like, man, why are you doing that? You already good in this.
Yeah, for me, because here's my thing, and this is in my 30s. This is what the answer's been. Because it would be a disservice to the man upstairs to not utilize the talents that he's given me. So that's what it is. And I tell this to people: if you feel like it's something in your heart that you want to do, and you're willing to work and be passionate about, because like a lot of people think this is my first time doing music. I've been a recording artist since I was 14. But sometimes in life you may put it down, pick it back up, put it down, pick it back up, but it's in your life. My mom always told me, she's like, oh yeah, you're gonna be in the media. She saw this, God put this on her heart when I was in middle school, like going to high school. And I didn't see it at the time, you know, so sometimes things are just aligned. You know, I went to LSU and I said, you know what, I'm gonna go for communication studies, and finished. So that's the message to our viewers too. Just finish. I don't care how the process looks. Like everything I'm doing right now, 4 years ago looked ugly and it didn't make sense. Why is it catching spark now? Because I trust the process and I kept working. Stayed consistent. Even when you're not consistent, stay consistent. What the hell does that mean? I'll explain. Man, sometimes you get tired and you might take a break. Get back to it.
Facts. All right. So tell us, what's next for you?
That's a good question. What's next for me? Oh man, these kids. I think that's it. I'll start with my oldest son, Kentrell. He's the #1 punter in this region. He's 35th in the country. So just being able to help guide him down his path for his goals. He a punter. I'm a D lineman. So now I have to find a specialist in that, and found him. You know, I had to do those things. So little Marlon, he speaks 2 languages. So it's so much, and he loves sports too. Like he's been the last couple of days, he's been watching the draft from like when I went undrafted to like now, just to see how that process goes. And our youngest boy, Titan Dallas, man, he just rough. He's a bundle of joy. So the family, you know, my wife, she's hustling her tail off too, man. We see it now, right? We see what could be. And we just a full head of steam. So I got some projects coming up. Fave and R&B. It's my first time, I guess, publicly announcing that. Fave and R&B is dropping. We got Nowhere out right now, written by Rob and Nicole. We have Long Letters. I knocked that thing out. I had the song done, and it's missing something. And then John Emery's sister, shouts out to Diamond, Emery Lovely, artist named Lovely. She's on that one. And I got Lover coming out with Brit. So we got some projects coming out, some singles that's going on a project, and videos, shows, man. And I'm open, bro. You know, I'm like, you can't plan everything, right? Sometimes you got to go with the flow. You have to use discernment. to figure out if this is what you need to do, if it makes sense. And that's what I've been on. I've been making it make sense lately.
And also, but last but not least, tell everyone, what can you find you on social media and just other music platforms, media platforms, podcasts, whatever you got going on.
Man, y'all make sure y'all check me out. I like to follow back too. Y'all go to Instagram, Twitter. On Instagram and Twitter is at BigFave504, BIGFAV504. Also, y'all can check me out on Facebook, Marlon Favorite. On the stream, I'm streaming everywhere, baby. If you go to Apple Music, Spotify, Tidal, type in Big Fave, BIGFAV. Got the hit single out, Hello Somebody. Y'all make sure y'all check it out. And the music videos all over YouTube. You can find me everywhere, baby. And I appreciate y'all for subscribing as well. Y'all subscribe to the YouTube.
Oh, but all right, we done.